All right, folks, welcome back to Eagles Power Hour, your Eastern Washington affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Patrick Frakes. I'm a little bit sniffly and tired today. Recording this Sunday morning after Eastern Washington's 28-38 loss to the University of Idaho in Moscow and Kibbie Dome. Um, yeah, man, this game was again kind of a similar story to every other good team Eastern has played this year. It's kind of the same old song and dance. Eastern looks like they belong, they compete, and just the big plays go the other way, and the other team just ends up pulling it out in the end. Despite giving up 38 points, I actually thought the defense played one of its better games for a better. I'd say probably their best 3 quarters of defense we've seen since the Drake game. And it's hard to say that when they give up 38 points, but um, through the first 3 quarters of the game, they only gave up 24 points, and I actually thought they played pretty dang well. I felt like Eastern wasn't giving Idaho free yards nearly as bad as in some previous games where there's just miscommunications and issues with run fitting and it's just explosive play after explosive play after explosive play. It got to that point late in the game when the game was kind of over, but I actually felt like generally the defense played. It's not good enough, absolutely not good enough, but I felt like they played better than they have in a while. And some of that growth that we saw in the Sac State game was back from they kind of skipped a week in the Davis game, and it seemed back. um, Eastern played a little more base type stuff, more kind of base cover four type things, and I thought it was good. Uh, the big, I think probably the difference in this game, in my opinion, was Jack Lane, starting quarterback for the Idaho Vandals, was back from his would be 7 week hiatus with a broken collarbone, 7 or 8 week hiatus, something like that. And yeah, Lane missed a couple throws early, but overall, he's just Lane is very good at dissecting defenses over the middle of the field, and just generally knowing where the soft spot in coverage is, and that's kind of what he did all night, man. It wasn't like he was throwing to you know really spanking wide open receivers all game. He was operating with a level of precision that um, I was pretty dang impressed with, honestly. I thought Jack Lane played pretty damn well, and I mean those first 2 touchdowns that Idaho had, both of them were just put in a spot where the Eastern's DBs couldn't do anything about it. They're in the right position, they're playing decent coverage, and it's just like, hey, the first one to the tight end, to I believe it's to Alex Moore. That one is just like, hey, we have a 6'1" skinny corner on a 6'4" receiver. He throws it up top, and I mean, I think that one, I think it was Alfonso Oyak. He could have probably made a play on that ball, and you know put them in a worse situation. But uh, it's like, okay, you give up a touchdown, at least you're in the right coverage and stuff. Um, and then on the other side of the ball, or on the second touchdown, anyways. I mean, Lane it was an RPO little slant to Jordan Dwyer, and I mean, Dejan Wells was literally in the perfect spot. It was just a perfect throw and a really nice catch. I mean, Dejean Wells had his hands literally ripping at the ball as it was getting there. And hey, sometimes good players make good plays. Jordan Dwyer is a really good player. So those first 2 touchdowns in the first half, I felt were just really good plays by Idaho. And then after that, man, the second half was a little bit of a different story, but uh, some of that just late in the game, the wheels were kind of falling off for Eastern. They're down by a lot of points, and uh, your starting quarterback gets hurt, right? It I think part of it is they just, the juice was kind of wearing off for Eastern down the stretch. They kept fighting, but it started wearing off for sure. Um, let's talk a little bit. Let's talk about the offense a little bit. So actually, um, let's hit on just kind of a little bit of the game flow on this one. This was a back and forth game for a little while, kind of. Eastern actually, or excuse me, no, Idaho went out to 7-0 lead. They drove 75 yards. There's a few explosive plays on that drive that were frustrating. A little bit of a lapse in tackling for a bigger run by Elisha Cummings, and then we allowed a pretty big slant, like a we got them to third down, and then they ran a slant behind our blitz. The same old song and dance on third down. And after that, Eastern seemed to, relax on the third down blitzing a little bit, but you know, uh, Idaho was able to drive down the field and scored. They had a 5.5 minute drive, scored a touchdown. Okay, they made a nice play. Cool. Now it's time for Eastern to answer, and they did. And they did. I mean, that first drive, I believe it was a bunch of we got a big play to Efton Chisholm, if I'm remembering right. A big play down the middle of the field to Efton Chisholm. Chiz was able to get behind the safeties, and Eastern had a little bit of success on the ground, which um, I was talking about it in EPH and on the Tubs of the Club podcast. Is I was not feeling good about Eastern's chances to put up points if they ran the ball 30 to 40 times. Well, Eastern ran the ball 45 times in this game, so I was impressed with how Eastern was able to run the ball pretty effectively. Actually, I was very impressed with how Eastern was able to run the ball. Uh, but and leaving the Kibbe Dome, I was a little bit upset with some of the play calling. I felt like we kind of abandoned the pass in the second half. But you look at when I watched the broadcast, I kind of realized Kikoa left the game with injury. Late in the first half, he left. He was getting worked on his calf. Something was wrong. And he goes back out there, looks fine for when he played, and then he played in the second half just a little bit less. They let him throw a little bit. Uh, you know, they were converting in the short pass game for enough, and then the fumble happens by Kiko Spears, and after that we did not see him again. And after the game, he had a big ice pack on his calf. I'm not sure which calf it was, but um, it makes me wonder if they are worried about something else uh, that comes with calf injuries is Achilles injuries, and so you got to be careful with calf injuries. Which I think they knew something was wrong, or he knew something was wrong in the first half. He tried to fight through it, and it wasn't quite happening. I thought Jared Taylor played okay in his absence. It's just he isn't the same thrower, isn't the same level of player in the pass game as Kikoa, and it led to the offense not being able to be as explosive as they need to. But back to the kind of the game flow side of things. Teams traded touchdowns through 3 possessions. Then Eastern drove down to the Idaho 7-yard line and could not punch the football in. Idaho forced a Eagle field goal. Eastern makes a field goal. Now it's 14-10, and Aaron Best decides to go with a surprise onside kick, and it felt like a really weird place to do a surprise onside kick. You're down 14-10, but it's like the midway of there's 12 minutes left in the second quarter. Like it's not like I don't know. I think the better place for that is later in the game usually, but that's just me. I thought it was better off when we did it in the second half versus Sac State and versus Montana. We did in the first half, and it did not work. Idaho jumped on it, and Idaho gets the ball on the Eastern 42, and they throw an interception on the first play. That is a massive break for Eastern Washington. You gave Idaho the ball on the 42. Now you're down 4, and they have positive. They're in your territory, and we have not been able to stop them yet this game. And we get a pick. It was a great play by Mikel Broussard. It almost looked like he abandoned his zone where he was supposed to be and covered that guy. And so there was a guy wide open where Mikel probably should have been. And he made a great play. He made the pick, but Eastern failed to score any points off of that. That might have been the drive. That might have been one of the first drives that Kiko was getting looked at for injury. But Eastern gets the ball back with momentum. Huge play. And they have to punt. That was the only punt that Eastern had in this game, actually. Crazy fact. But after that, Idaho drives all the way down into the Eagle red zone, and then the Eagle defense gets a stop. They got a huge stop, forced Idaho to kick a field goal in the red zone. Really big deal. Now you're only down 7 when we realistically in that situation we could have been down by 2 to 3 scores with how it played out. Defense really stepped up in that first half to keep Eastern in the game. When the offense wasn't quite humming 100%, then Eastern gets the ball back, and they drive all the way down to the Idaho 27-yard line and cannot punch it in the end zone. They are stopped for a field goal. Again, this is another one of those drives where it's like, dude, we need touchdowns. We can't live with field goals against good teams like Idaho and with the defense that we have. Like we have to score touchdowns. We've just struggled. We've really struggled scoring touchdowns off of defensive stops. That's been a huge issue all year, and it kind of continued to do that in this game. But after that, we kick our field goal, we get it. Then Eastern gets another defensive stop, 3 and out for Idaho. We get the ball back with 20 seconds left in the half. And what do we do on the first play with 20 seconds left in the half? We get the ball in right around midfield, right at midfield, actually. We run a quarterback draw with 20 seconds left. I was upset with that play call in the moment. A quarterback draw hasn't gotten us more than 5 or 6 yards all year, it seems like. And why would we run that in that situation? 20 seconds left in the half. We're at the 50-yard line, 2 timeouts. Why not throw the ball over the middle of the field? I mean, if they're going to defend the sidelines, throw the ball over the middle of the field. But that's here nor there. That's the pass, whatever. But Eastern ends up trying a really long field goal. It was like a 53-yard field goal, I think it was. Missed a 53-yard field goal. So be it. That's fine. Second half, Eastern gets the ball coming out of the half. 7-minute, 48-second drive. Drives all the way down to the Idaho 2-yard line. It was actually like the Idaho 1-inch line. Pretty much right. I mean, as close as you can possibly get to touchdown, and turns the ball over on downs. This drive, Eastern was able to just, they really just pounded the rock down the field. And I could not believe that Eastern was able to drive the ball down the field, and not punching it in the end zone there was absolutely massive in this game. You open up the third quarter, you score that. I mean, all of a sudden, this game is what it would be. Eastern would take a lead if we punch that ball in, and just I mean, we run the ball on first, second, and third and 5-ish from the 5-yard line, and then we have 4th and 1 inch, and we try to throw it to the flat. I mean, I get that you're throwing it to Chisholm, who's good at making people miss, but he's good at making people miss in space. And on the 1-inch line, there's not a lot of space to make people miss. So I don't know. I didn't love the call, but I felt like we could have ran the ball I mean, we Eastern had been able to run the ball pretty effectively that whole drive. Once we got into the red zone, they kind of they put more guys in the box and were able to stop the run pretty well. But like, Jared Taylor has been really good at getting an inch up the middle all year. But I will say, even watching the replay, like if Eastern does hand it off to Tuna on that play, it was probably going to get blown up in the backfield too. So I mean, that's one of those situations where, I mean, I was frustrated with Eastern's play calling, but also you kind of got to tip your hat to the Idaho defense because they made some massive plays in the red zone. Eastern turns the ball over on downs and gives the ball back to Idaho on the 2-yard line, and the score is 17-13, and Idaho breaks a massive run from the 2-yard line. I actually said in the stands, I'm sitting in the stands, I'm like, well, a 98-yard touchdown would be pretty on brand for Eastern's defense, as Day Buchanan ran right through the middle of the defense and went like 70 yards. Luckily, there was a sideline interference or something that backed Idaho up, but it didn't really matter. Idaho punched the ball in on that drive, a 98-yard drive, only 3 minutes of time possession. What does that mean? Explosive plays. What did Eastern not really had to not do? Explosive plays. So Idaho punches in a touchdown. Now they're up 24-10 or 24-13, and Eastern has to answer here. You really have to answer here. And what does Eastern do? They turn the ball over. Kikoa ran on a little, quarterback buck. It was like a quarterback counter, a quarterback buck power play. I'm not 100% sure what the word would be, but it was blocked very well. Get to the second level, Kikoa gets tackled and just pops out. I mean, it's a tough play. It happens. It can't happen, but it happens. And Eastern recovers. Idaho recovers. Then Idaho, with the kind of short field, they got the ball right around midfield, goes, punches the ball in the end zone, and that drive again, like they just made the plays that they needed to make, and after that, now all of a sudden it's a 31-13 game, and it no longer feels close, right? And credit to Eastern, they kept fighting, but I mean, the big plays that the second and third quarter really just kind of went to Idaho. They made the plays in those quarters that they needed to make and got themselves in the lead enough to kind of dominate the second half of this game. After that's the last Idaho touchdown. Eastern answered with a touchdown, a nice play. Then Idaho gets the ball back and they go, Eastern tried an onside kick after this touchdown, did not get it. Idaho recovered on the Eastern 47 and they go and score a touchdown. I think part of why I feel like the Eagle defense actually played a lot better than the score shows is like they were put in some tough spots, giving the ball to Idaho right around midfield, that happened 3 or 4 times in this game just because of the onside kicks and the turnover. I don't know. The defense was not put in great positions a couple times. Michael Wortham did have a late touchdown, a late kickoff touchdown return that made it kind of close. I think he made it a 10-point game, but Idaho won this game in the middle 2 quarters, and a really important stretch is I think the most important stretch is when Eastern was forced to kick a field goal on the Idaho 7-yard line. From that point until halftime, it's just Idaho made the big plays. Eastern had the pick, but then Idaho's defense gets out there and gets a stop. Then I thought the Eagle defense actually played pretty well in that stretch, but the Eagle offense just couldn't pick up the defense. You get a feel. You had three opportunities inside the Idaho 30-yard line, and you could only come away with 3 points or 6 points in those 3 opportunities in this game. So I don't know. It was just a frustrating game because I don't know if there's a ton. I don't know if there's a ton I'm upset with the coaching staff about. Obviously, like we're just not at the level that we need to be right now. We aren't making the big plays. But I mean, I actually felt like it wasn't a horrible game plan necessarily. It wasn't. I didn't feel like we got totally out coached. There was a few moments where I'm like, what the fuck are we thinking? Which is a typical, I feel like every college football fan does that. But um, I didn't think this was an atrocious game plan or anything like that. I thought Eastern played up to the competition. And you lose your quarterback in the second half, and it pretty much eliminates the pass game. I mean, it was very tough for Eastern to pass the ball in the second half, and we were able to keep it close. I mean, Idaho's a really good team, guys. They're a top 10 team, and with Jack Lane back, they're probably a top 5-ish team in my opinion, and they're going to be a team that makes a pretty nice run in the playoffs. But man, a little bit of thematic things before. I've kind of just been ranting. I'm more of a ranting episode. That's how usually these recaps go. But talking about the box score a little bit. Eastern rush for 215 total yards, 224 total yards, 215 net yards on 45 attempts. It's just under 5 yards a carry. 173 yards through the air. The quarterbacks were 14 for 18 in this game. Averaged about 9 yards a catch, or 9 yards an attempt, 12 yards a catch, and 1 touchdown. Should have probably been 3 touchdowns because of because of the Chisholm big plays where he got caught. But 388 total yards of offense. I mean, it's not god awful, but we needed a little bit more. We needed a little bit more from the offense, which it's tough to ask more than 28 points. But Eastern's a team that has to score 30 plus points to win games, and we just weren't able to do that with the limitations on Kikoa in that second half. Turnover battle was even. 1 fumble loss for Eastern, 1 pick for Idaho. Special teams was a very nice thing for Eastern. I mean, Michael Wortham had his kickoff return for a touchdown. He had 133 return yards on 2 returns, which is pretty impressive. Average return 66.5 yards. He better be an All-American kick returner this year, or I'm going to raise hell. Any other key stats that I missed? I mean, not a ton in terms of just box score things. 3 red zone chances, 4 scores for Eastern, 6 red zone chances, 7 scores for, 4 red zone chances for Eastern, 3 scores, 7 red zone chances for Idaho, and 6 scores for them. And that 1 stop was at the end of the game when they kneeled it out in the red zone. So that's most of the box score things. Let's just quick hit on what went well. A couple things went well in my opinion. I thought the defense played one of their better games as a unit, even despite the big play. Like it's not a good outing, but I think Idaho is a pretty good team. And maybe they weren't an incredible offense this year, but with Jack Lane, they're a different team. And I actually thought the defense, when looking at the situations they were put in, I wasn't too incredibly upset with the defensive performance. Obviously, the explosive plays need to be limited, but some of those explosive plays were they were great plays. So, by Idaho. Another thing that went well for Eastern, I want to give a huge shout out to 3 guys in particular on the Eagle defense. Miles Mayoski played one hell of a game at linebacker in the reps that he got to play. He came into the year kind of a second, third string linebacker, and he got a ton of time in this game. And I think he played his best game of his career as an Eagle. And I really want to see him start. I think he he has really impressed me this year, and I think he's a guy with he reminds me a little bit of Kettner Cup, as in like, hey, he's not like the most flashy guy you've ever seen on defense, but the dude just makes plays and he plays hard nose, and I like it. So I would love to see, um, I would love to see him play more. Second name I really wanted to shout out was Derek Ganter Jr. Derek Ganter Jr. I mean, actually, I could pull up the tackling stats right now. Derek Ganter Jr. had 15 total tackles in this game, which is just ridiculous. He really came up and fitted the run really well, and I was impressed by him. He ended up coming up in the box a lot and making a lot of really big plays right around the line of scrimmage, which was nice to see. Uh, Miles Miosky had 7 total tackles in this game. And then the other name I really wanted to shout out was Matthew Brown at D tackle had an awesome game. He had 6 total tackles, a tackle for loss, and a sack. Um, Matthew Brown was all over the place in this game, and maybe it didn't show up. Like 6 tackles isn't like outstanding for D tackle. That's pretty impressive, and he was all over the field. I felt like he played really well, and I think it's unfortunate that Eastern's having such a bad year because I think Matthew Brown's a guy that should be getting all conference nods, probably second team all conference at D tackle. Uh, I would think, but just because he plays on the Eastern defense, I don't know if he's going to get those looks. But he's been really good. Big number 9. Uh, Shout out to him. What didn't go well, or what went well offensively, I thought Eastern ran the ball really well. Marcise Yetz actually looked really good in spell of Tuna Alta here. He's a guy that I think he's like a redshirt freshman running back. He looked really good. He averaged 7 yards a carry. He's got some burst to him. He's gonna. I hope he gets more carries moving forward, especially if Malik Dotson's still out. He was still in a boot today or yesterday. Tuna had 67 yards. Jared Taylor had 67 yards. Marcise Yetz had 51 yards. Kikoa had 29 yards. Mike Wortham had 10 yards on the ground. It was overall a good rushing performance. 45 rushes for 224 yards is solid, but it just wasn't quite good enough, right? Um, through the air, uh, you know, through the air wasn't excellent. I felt like we could have leaned on the air a little more in this game, but again, it's hard when Kehoe was hurt. But Eastern was able to get behind the secondary for a number of times early in this game, and they just, for whatever reason, man, they just kind of went away from it, and it was kind of tough. But and the other thing that went well, I kind of already hit on it, but the special teams was pretty solid. I mean, we missed a 53-yard field goal, but we did make 2 shorter field goals. We did. We knocked through we had a kick return touchdown, average 66 yards per return. Efton Chisholm had a nice punt return. I think Coach, man, what's his name? Coach Danny has done a really good job with the special teams unit this year. I've been happy with the special teams for sure. What didn't go well? Obviously, we already hit on the defense. We didn't lean on the. I felt like we didn't lean on the pass game enough. Personally, I think we could have passed the ball a little bit more. But again, the Kiko thing makes it hard. They did in the first half lean on the pass game a lot more, and then the second half, it was hard to without Kikoa in there. What another thing that didn't go well? Obviously, we already hit on the defense. It's just the explosive plays. Again, you just limit some of those explosive plays, and this defense isn't that bad. But one of the other things that didn't go well is later in the game. It would have been 24 to what was the score? Eastern had a chance to stop Idaho. It was a 10-point game at the time. Eastern had a chance to stop Idaho and get the ball back and go score and make it a 3-point game. It was a 10-point game. Eastern got Idaho into a 3rd and 8. Idaho tried to throw a slant. We blitzed. I mean, the slant was open, but Lane missed. I mean, Lane threw it kind of low. Jordan Dwyer caught it, dropped it. He would have been short of the first down anyways. Eastern blitzed off the edge. Samurai Anderson hit Jack Lane just a second late and got a roughing the passer penalty that just killed Eastern. I mean, they would have had a defensive stop. Idaho would have had to either kick a really long field goal or this is late in the game, 10-point game. You know, Eastern gets a stop and then they give it away with a penalty. Samurai Anderson just hit him a tad late. I watching that back, I thought it was a little bit of a soft call, but obviously I'm biased, so it was a fraction of a second late, and if you watch it in real time, uh, I don't know if you watch it in slow motion, it looks kind of bad, but if you watch it in real time, I didn't think it was that egregious. Um, but yeah. Another thing that went well, I'll hit on that just a second. The defense was getting pressure tonight. I thought they did a pretty good job getting pressure. I don't know. Let me see if they have any quarterback hurry stats and stuff in here for us, because the defense actually, getting pressure has been kind of a tough. Wow, they only gave one quarterback hurry as a stat in this game, and that was to Trevor Thurman. I actually thought Eastern got pressure a number of times that made some difference in some throws, like where that probably if you give those guys time, it's probably a touchdown, and it ended up being incomplete passes a couple times. But moving on. Yeah. Again, sorry for it being jumbled. That's how these usually go. I'm just a jumbled mess, but moving. We'll, we'll do our quick little ad read here. Shout out to Walk On Apparel, our sponsor of Eagles Power Hour. Walk On Apparel focuses on capturing Eastern's culture and traditions in apparel designs that are as different as they are affordable. Plus, 10% of the profit from every sale gets donated right back to the Eagle Athletic Fund. That's a win for you and your alma mater. EPH listeners get 10% off Eastern gear at checkout using code EPH10. That's EPH10. New designs drop throughout the season. So go check out walkon-apparel.com or follow them on Twitter and Instagram to see what's dropping next. That's walkon-apparel.com. Thanks again, guys, for sponsoring us. I just got a new shirt yesterday, so should be rocking that in one of the next podcasts eventually. We'll see. Yeah. Again, quick players of the game. Let's do quick players of the game. I thought Miles Majewski had a great game defensively, but he wasn't in the game enough to win player of the game for me on defense. I'm going to give player of the game on defense to Derek Cantor. I mean, you have 15 tackles. It's pretty impressive. He's probably going to make a freshman All-American team, I would think, potentially, maybe. We'll see. But 15 tackles is pretty impressive. But also 15 tackles from your safety usually isn't a good sign if you're a defense. But shout out to Ganser. He played a good game in general, and I thought he played well. Offensively, offensively, it's a little bit tougher. It wasn't really like a standout performance by any particular person other than, of course, Efton Chisholm. Chisholm had 7 receptions for 114 yards, and I believe he had almost all of those in the first half. So it felt like he had almost all of them in the first half. So I'll give it to Chisholm, but Tuna Alti here had a solid game as well as Jared Taylor on the ground. Actually, Jared Taylor played a pretty solid game. He had a touchdown throw, 67 yards in the game on the ground, average 4+ yards a carry. Marcese Yates averaged 7 yards a carry. Like, it was a pretty well-rounded game offensively, but I'll give it to Efton Chisholm for his 114 yards. And he is up there with Cooper Kupp with 300+ receptions in his career. What was not fun was his 300th career reception was the 4th and 1 inch throw to the flat that got stuffed. That was his 300th reception, so that's fun. But offensive player of the game for Eastern, Efton Chisholm. Special teams player of the game, Michael Witham. just again, guys, it's kind of the same old song and dance. Eastern loses to a good team. Eastern just kind of is out executed in key stretches of the game. They had a stop late in the game to give themselves a chance to go score and make it a one possession game, and it was thrown away by the flag. A flag. I mean, I as a coach, I wouldn't be necessarily upset with my player for that, but yeah, another. It's just a tough loss, guys, and it's kind of how it's going to be this year. I've come to grips with it. It's kind of how it's going to be. Eastern's going to compete with the good teams and lose, and then they're going to beat some of the bad teams. Sacramento State lost to Idaho State yesterday, so Jesus, they're in a dumpster fire right now. But whoo, man. Uh, Looking forward, I'm not excited for this week. Eastern hosts Montana State. Montana State is really, really good. So we'll have a preview for that later this week. We'll see how I'm not feeling super optimistic about that one, as should probably you guys. But still, get to Roos. Should be a fun time. But I think that's all we got for this uh, reaction episode of the Idaho game. Again, sorry for being scatterbrained, everyone. It's been a long 3 days between traveling to Yakima for football on Friday and then traveling to Moscow on Saturday for football. And now I'm finally like having a day at home, and I'm just like, it's my lazy day. So, but anyways, thanks everyone for listening, guys. Tough loss, but we'll keep moving on. Thanks everyone for listening, and go Eagles.